Howdy, people, and welcome to the 9th Chugcratic Extracurricular Seminar. Joining me today is the Dean of Fabrication, DefinitelyNotChar.
As always, it's a pleasure to be here, Rune.
I hope everyone watching has had a very Merry Christmas or whatever holiday they celebrate, and by the time this comes out, a Happy New Year to go with it.
Yes, I hope all of our students have enjoyed the holiday season. I wish them all a Merry Christmas, and I hope they come back from their break refreshed for a new academic year with the School of Chugcratic.
Absolutely. Today we're looking at the first wave reveals of the brand new Transformers toy line, Age of the Primes, a line dedicated to giving us full-sized figures of the 13 primes, something that Power the Primes kind of tried and kind of failed to do.
Yes. We got sort of a halfway house where they made pretender shells and then called them the various primes, and then gave us inside those pretender shells. They were called like Prime Masters, right?
Yeah, they were called Prime Masters, and they came with decoy shells based on the classic Generation 1 Pretenders.
Yes. And then the Pretenders started getting their own toys, and now we're getting proper toys of the Primes, so... Oh well.
Well, I mean, modernized toys of the Pretenders have existed before then.
That as well. But we're getting, I suppose, the modern Chug take.
And of course, Legacy United's Vector Prime was something of a prelude to this.
Yeah. Yes. A lot of people rather upset that they're not going to be doing a separate Vector Prime, which, from Hasbro's perspective, I understand why they wouldn't, but from a fan's perspective, I can absolutely understand being disappointed, since that was not the best retool.
No, it wasn't. I haven't acquired it yet. And I have a feeling that they might re-release that retool in whatever comes after Age of the Primes. And if they do, at the very least, I hope they touch it up with some paint.
Maybe. Something I've noticed about the Age of the Primes, though, as we've been speaking about it, is that they seem to be abandoning the title-subtitle structure for the toy lines. Because, of course, with Transformers War for Cybertron, it was Transformers War for Cybertron Siege, Earthrise, and then Kingdom. And then after that, it was Legacy, Legacy Evolution, and then Legacy United. But this is just Age of the Primes with no subtitle.
My guess is that any sequel to this toy line will probably end in Of the Primes as well.
Probably something like that. Yes, you're right. Revenge of the Primes, Coming of the Primes, something of the Primes. Almost certainly, you're probably right.
In which case, we should probably get a move on in taking a look at these new product reveals. At least two that we'll get out of the way right off the bat are the redecos. First, we have Deluxe Class Fugitive Waspinator. After being cancelled in the original animated toy line, he's finally getting his due in this one.
Right. I didn't get Legacy Bumblebee, Legacy Animated Bumblebee, but this one genuinely tempts me because it's a deco that hasn't gotten an actual toy before, and it's of a from what I've heard, not a bad mold.
This is not the first time they tried to get a Fugitive Waspinator toy out, because, of course, the original was just a straight redeco of animated deluxe class Bumblebee. And at the time, it was just a straight redeco because there wasn't room in the budget to retool his head. They apparently had to choose between Ironhide and Fugitive Waspinator, and they went with Ironhide, and then that version of Waspinator never saw release anyway. For the record, I have passed on the original, Legacy animated Bumblebee, because I was holding out for a redeco and I guess retool in this case, like this one.
Yes, yes. I was I'm still on the fence about this deco because I'm of the opinion that the very very small deluxes are still pretty much skimping out. You know, I'm pretty sure, you know, Hasbro could at least include a little bit more with what we get for a 20 quid deluxe these days. But this is a solid maybe from me. Especially since people seem to like this mold, and it's a unique deco, as you said.
Yeah, the two-tone green looks really well. It looks pretty nice on this one.
Yeah, I like the shade of. It looks almost turquoise to me, and I think it looks quite nice on the car.
Yeah, I like the two-tone green. I like the purple and the silver, and the head sculpt's pretty spot on as well.
Yes, but remind me, did Wasp ever actually become a Decepticon in Transformers Animated?
In this form, Waspinator was falsely accused of being a Decepticon. And then when he got mutated into the actual Waspinator by Black Arachne, he had a Decepticon logo on him, but I'm not sure they were really thinking about it that hard.
Yeah, yeah. Bit of a funny one. I know they probably just they put the Decepticon logo because it's easier to brand than to say, oh, he's an Autobot, but he's a Badman. But you know, still kind of a funny detail.
I mean, this specific recolor represents Waspinator after he had been in the stockade as punishment for his false imprisonment, which is why the shade of green on his face, hands, limbs, etc. is more of a lime green as opposed to the olive that we see him when he starts out an Autobot. It makes me wonder if they'll release Wasp as like just Autobot Wasp in those original colors.
Maybe as part of a Buzzworthy whatever pack.
Well, Buzzworthy's dead now, so it'll probably just be a select release or something.
I didn't actually realize they stopped doing Buzzworthy.
I think they stopped doing it before Legacy United.
Oh, goes to show what I know.
And with that, we shall move on to the second redeco, and this is just a straight redeco with no retooling. This is the second Generation 2 themed Grimlock.
Yeah, this is interesting. As much as I am not particularly a fan of the wheelie that comes packed in with this Grimlock toy, and also I'm kind of surprised that they included a wheelie. Considering that it's G2 Grimlock, I guess he might be gang molded somehow with it. In which case, you know, fair enough. But I do find the fact that they use the Marvel color scheme for him.
That is correct.
Yeah, the Marvel color scheme is pretty interesting. When it comes to the G2 Grimlock himself, what I would have liked to have seen on a G2 Grimlock redeco is more of that like toyetic detail that gets included on those style of redecos. And there's a little bit of it on here, but not as much as I would have liked to see. You know, since this is a repaint, they do have a bit more budget for paint, one would assume.
And it's funny that they included this version of Wheelie with this version of Grimlock instead of the comic edition Grimlock they did a few months ago.
Yeah, that is an interesting one, actually, now that I think of it. Did they even include a wheelie in with that one?
No, they didn't include Wheelie with that Grimlock, and they didn't include Wheelie with the Grimlock, with the other G2 Grimlock that was part of the Toxitron collection.
Yeah, that's quite odd then. That they specifically chose to include Wheelie with this version. Maybe someone on the team just really liked that deco of Wheelie. It's a possibility.
In any event, I'm probably passing on this one. In the grand scheme of things, they've just replaced the gray with blue.
Yeah, pretty much. And they've also given him the G2 Autobot tampograph on the side of his tail.
I mean, it's nice for people who want it, but for me, it's a pretty unremarkable redeco.
Yeah, same here. It's not bad. I know there are people who like the G2 color schemes for the G1 characters specifically, and to them, I hope this is I hope this is good. Though I do see a few things that are missing. So, you know.
I mean, I really like the mold, but it's not one that I would own multiple copies of, really.
Yeah, nah. I've already got a G2 Grimlock anyway. I've got the New Age version.
But if we're done talking about this Grimlock, we shall move on to Armada Red Alert Voyager class.
Right. Yes. Okay. Now, I will admit to being one of the naysayers who thought this was going to be a retool of Legacy Skids. But I am actually, from all of the renders and all of the prototypes that we've seen, I am genuinely hopeful for this. I think it looks probably like the best Unicron Trilogy update figure we've gotten since Armada Optimus Prime. And that's coming from someone who felt like a lot of them were kind of letdowns. This is the first one I've been like properly excited about, I think.
He looks really cool. He comes with the launcher. I mean, obviously, we shouldn't be surprised by the fact that he doesn't include long arm.
Yeah. I like that he includes the flippo, the shoulder cannon gimmick. I would have liked to have seen the chest disc launcher represented. I know he never did it in the show, or at least I'm pretty sure he never did it in the show. But it would have been nice. It would have also been nice if the side flap on the leg could fold out like the original toy. But you know, I get that's not what it's going for. Though I do have one question. It's that, do we know if one of the hands is detachable or can fold back?
I don't know if it's detachable, if it does fall back, but basically the idea is you can substitute at least one of those hands with any of those little accessories pictured on his left-hand side, our right-hand side. You get the idea.
Yes. Yeah. It's just interesting because I don't see where the hand would go, so I'm presuming that one of those hands is attached via a 5mm port or something like that, which could lead to some issues with second-hand copies in the future, I imagine.
I can't disagree with your assessment. He's looking pretty good. He always was a weirdly proportioned bot to begin with that giant hood, or is it an SUV? Would you call it an SUV?
Yeah, SUV is about right. Some kind of all-terrain emergency vehicle. Couldn't name it on a specific model, but it's definitely meant to be more of like a sort of rugged outback ambulance, something like that. You know, something that like park rangers would use to go and grab someone who's like broken their leg in the middle of a forest or something, as opposed to something that drives down the middle of a city like Ratchet.
But yeah, as for Red Alert, he always was a weirdly proportioned bot. Giant chest, arms from underneath the doors, very leggy, with bits of car cable attached to his legs. He honestly feels like one of the Autobot brothers from RID 2001.
It's interesting. I recently acquired a copy of the original Armada Red Alert. And the thing that stood out to me was that hand feel wise, like the way he played, the way he felt, is like almost a spitting image of an early Tobot, like a 2010 era's Tobot, which is interesting to me.
Despite that he doesn't come with a long arm, it does look like he has some sort of port at the back.
Yeah, it does look like he has a mini-con port at the back. I mean, all of the Armada figures, from what we've seen, I'm pretty sure. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I might eat my words when I go and check my figures, but I'm pretty sure all of the Armada figures have come with at least one mini-con port on them. And also, usually, I think there's also a 5mm port on the hood. Actually corresponds to where the other mini-con port was on the original toy. One wonders if maybe Hasbro might, when they eventually do the mini-con multi-pack, as we all know they're going to do at this point, include some kind of 5mm mini-con port adapter, you know?
Or they might give them the hotshot treatment and release a Power Links redeco with a version of Long Arm there. Who knows?
Maybe.
Also, you might have to get out your knife and fork to eat your words, because as far as I know, Legacy's Armada Starscream does not have a mini-con port.
He definitely doesn't have a mini-con port on the back. Oh no, I'm thinking of Thrilling 30. You're right. Thrilling 30 is the one with mini-con ports. Well, I'll go and eat them later. I'll have them for dinner.
I mean, there is some sort of port on his sword, I think, but that's not really what you want.
No.
I mean, granted, it's not like they activate any gimmicks this time around, but still.
It's going to be for the inevitable whatever pack. I don't know. Maybe they do it is the way they make Swindle when they actually release a Swindle, is they have it so he has like a clip on the underside that lets him clip directly onto Starscream's back instead of using a mini-con port.
That might have to be how they get around that.
Mm-hmm.
But as for Red Alert, he is a likely pickup for me.
Same here.
I have Hotshot. I still don't have that Armada Prime.
Well, I have the only mold that I'm missing that Hasbro has released for Armada's Chug updates has been Tidal Wave, and honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed with Tidal Wave, but we can get into that later. But it will be nice to have the main Autobot trio when this comes out.
It will, absolutely. If we're done talking about Red Alert, we shall move on to the first of the Primes, Solus. And from the looks of it, they've given her a Cybertronian truck mode.
Solus is one of those figures that embodies my issues with the Primes overall in terms of design. In that, like, looking at her in robot mode, you can't really tell what she turns into. And what she turns into doesn't really have much bearing on her, you know? It's almost like she's just turning into a car because she has an obligation to be some kind of transforming robot.
You know, when I was setting up this podcast, I knew that one of the things you would bring up was the fact that they're working with designs that essentially weren't meant to transform to begin with.
Well, you know, it stands true. It stands true. And you can tell from this design that it was never meant to be a transformer. When you look, as opposed to looking at something like we just looked at with Red Alert becomes a very convincing vehicle. This is not a particularly convincing vehicle, in my opinion. You can even see her thighs sticking out from the sides of the truck, and they're very obviously the robot thighs. You know?
Yeah, I can't exactly argue with that. And it doesn't particularly help, of course, that Solus is simply a deluxe, which means she doesn't have much to work with.
Yes. It looks like, the way they've displayed her here, it looks like she's going to be able to somehow hold the hammer halfway down the hilt. But it looks like it's a solid piece. At least the hilt is. I wonder if the way you're supposed to put it on is if you're supposed to take the head of the hammer and like take the head of the hammer off and then slide the hilt all the way through her hand so that it gets to the bottom. That's the only way I can see it happening right now, because I'm pretty sure she has those closed fist hands that every Transformer has.
That could be what happens. It would at least add a nice bit of play value to her forge. It can also, like, it's not shown here in these pictures, but I believe the forge can attach to the top of the truck like some sort of turret, and the tip, like, at least one end of it is blast effects compatible.
I suppose that's an interesting way of doing it, but I don't see it being very convincing. Just looking at the toy right now, I think it would just look. Maybe some people will like it, but for me, all I can really see it is a hammer on top of the car.
Fair enough. But I do like the robot mode, though.
Yeah, the robot mode is it's a pretty good rendition of the design that has been the status quo for Solus Prime. So I can't really complain about it.
Yeah, that's more or less her design, but she hasn't made any real prominent appearances in Transformers media outside of possibly the Machinima series.
Oof.
And this may not be an exact replica of that design, but there are cues here and there. She has what I believe is some sort of, would you call it like a welder's apron?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure if that's necessarily what they were going for, but yeah, that's what I would presume it would be, like a welder's apron. Though I suppose it could also be like a loincloth or a type of robe, like trying to evoke a sort of robed thing. I mean, honestly, one of my biggest issues with Solus Prime's design in general is that, you know, her design doesn't really evoke the idea of someone who uses a forge a lot. You know, I would, I get that it's an established design from the Covenant of the Primes and all that, but like, I don't know. I would prefer more visual cues to what her job is in her robot mode.
Well, I think that's what the loincloth / possible welder's apron is supposed to be.
Maybe. Though I don't know. It doesn't really read as that to me, personally. Though I can see where you're coming from, Rin. I do get it.
I'm likely to pick this one up. It may not be my first purchase from this toy line, but for me, I don't think it looks too bad. Something that I should have mentioned with Red Alert is that there seem to be a lot more vehicles with pinned wheels in this line so far.
Yes, you're right. Now that you mention it, I am actually quite happy that we are seeing a return of pinned wheels. I'm glad that pinned wheels are going back from being a selling point to just being a standard feature. I appreciate that.
Well, we'll see how long it lasts, knock on wood.
Yes.
But again, Solus Prime, she looks fine, more so in the robot mode, and looks like she has a fair bit of articulation on her. When you're wielding something like a forge, you hopefully expect a lot of double-handed poses with that forge.
Oh, we'll see.
In which case, we shall move on to Primer Prime. So this one was, of course, in fiction, was, of course, the first Prime created, the Warrior of Light. Although most of him is based on the aligned continuity design, the head sculpt is influenced by a robot that appears in a flashback in Five Faces of Darkness Part 4 from the Generation 1 cartoon. He comes with his Star Saber, which is his typical accessory, the hilt of which is formed from the Matrix of Leadership, which, as you can see, stores inside his chest, which opens up accordingly. And he transforms into what I've heard described as a lunar truck.
I guess it's just it just looks to me like a space van.
To me, it honestly looks like a Power Core Combiner's ice pick without his blades.
Yeah, you're right. It is somewhat reminiscent of that, isn't it? Yeah, my pretty much all my criticisms apply from Solus to Primer. He doesn't look like a robot that turns into a vehicle when he's a robot, and he doesn't look like and his vehicle mode is just his shins on the top, with a cab on the front. He just it feels like you can tell that the design is, well, we tried to make a vehicle out of this robot that we already had. That all said, though, it looks decent. I have seen on some prototype pictures, though, it seems like the white plastic washes out all of the detail, kind of ends up looking almost soapy with the pearlescent. I think they're using pearlescent white plastic for this.
Well, I mean, when you're the warrior of light, unfortunately, your color scheme is not exactly going to be the most thrilling out there.
I suppose so. Though Takua made it work. Takanova, rather, from Bionicle.
One of the criticisms I've seen lobbed towards this figure is that the head doesn't really match the rest of the body.
Yes, yeah. I can see where people are coming from. In these renders, it looks a bit more cohesive, though. Um, it is basically a G1 head slapped on a aligned continuity body for
Basically, the criticism is that the two supposedly clash aesthetically in certain people's opinions.
I can see where people are coming from, but it's not a particular issue for me.
Yeah, I don't think it looks particularly egregious.
No, me neither.
Like I said, you have the Star Saber with the removable matrix, which stores in his chest. Something that I don't know if you've heard of recently was that the weapons of the primes are apparently going to combine, or at least be used as some sort of weapon for Primus, implying that a new Primus is on the way.
I have not heard this. That's interesting. I've never seen. I'll just say I've never seen like a combined weapon when it comes to mainline Transformers that really works. Usually, it just looks like a bunch of guns slapped together. Um, Maybe I'll be wrong this time. Maybe it'll end up looking cohesive, but I don't see it looking particularly cohesive so far.
Well, I mean, with Solus's Forge and the Star Saber, I don't see it looking particularly cohesive either.
Yeah. Maybe the forge will be some kind of barrel for a gun, and then the sword will be a bayonet. Maybe that's the only way I can see it working so far.
But as for this toy, this is another one that will likely be a pickup for me. Again, he probably won't be my first purchase.
Yeah, I'm probably going to skip Primer personally. Not really one of the Prime designs that I'm particularly enthused about.
If he was colored entirely like that robot from Five Faces of Darkness, assuming you've actually seen him before, would you
Yeah,
buy
I've
it
seen
then?
one. Still probably not, because the color scheme is one thing, but it's just the overall design, in my opinion, doesn't really speak to me. Like I said, it's another design where they never really intended for it to be a transformer in the first place. It was just, something they did for the Covenant of the Primes. So it's not the kind of thing that's gonna tickle my interest personally.
Fair deal. In which case, we shall move on to someone who I think will be one of my first purchases from this toy line, Megatronus the Fallen.
Yes.
Unlike those other two primes, it seems that the Fallen was designed with some sort of transformation in mind back in the day, because even in his debut in the Dreamwave comics, he had that Cybertronian tank mode or something akin to it anyway.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, it was a Don Figura design, and Don Figura is very good about planning out transformations for characters when he makes his designs. That's why he's one of my favorite designers personally. And yes, this is going to probably be one of my pickups for Age of the Primes. I am looking forward to this. At first, I was kind of lukewarm about it, because I thought it was some kind of Megatron retool. But the more I look at it, the more I realize it's not really actually got any shared engineering with Megatron. It looks to be pretty much its own figure, and it looks quite good.
Well, apparently, this figure was designed without any planned retools in mind, not even 86 Megatron.
Interesting. I I mean, 86 Megatron is an interesting topic. I wonder what the actual plan is for that eventual inevitable release.
I think he's just going to be a tank, and hopefully not the Siege/Earthrise mold again.
We shall see. I keep saying Megatron should be an artillery piece.
But as for Megatronus, this isn't the first Dreamwave-inspired figure of him, because we did have the Titanium toy. I have that toy. It looks cool, but unfortunately, like most of that line, the build quality is crap. So I think this will satisfy a lot of people who are after a more comic-accurate design of the Fallen.
Yes. I quite like the direction they've gone with the flame detailing, making them effect parts. I think that's probably really the best way you could have gone with that with this sort of toy, is to make the flames effect parts.
And thankfully removable too, so that you can have a clean Fallen if you want.
Yeah. Design-wise, the tank isn't the cleanest, but honestly, I think the robot is a lot better than previous tank Megatrons we've gotten before. I'll be honest, I just like this design. I can't even. I think I like the design to begin with, and so this is probably going to be a pickup for me.
Same here. He looks very cool in both modes. The color scheme is more accurate with the purples compared to something like that Titanium figure I just mentioned. He comes with a blade and a spear. He also comes with his, well, although you're probably thinking fusion cannon, I think it's actually called the Requiem Blaster in this case. That it looks like the gun barrel of the tank is a detachable piece that plugs into his back.
Yeah.
Looking highly articulate. In terms, they say that there aren't any planned redecors and retools for this mold, but I potentially see a multi-pack where this one is colored more like that Titanium figure, like more towards the black, just being straight up black all over. Maybe the flame pieces are more of a yellow color as well.
Or yeah, that would probably, yes, more like the original Titanium figure.
The head sculpt again, very very Night-like, very Dreamwave inspired.
Yeah. It's got that very iconic grill, almost cowcatcher looking faceplate.
Certainly near the top of my list, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to the other big thing regarding this toy line. And all I can say is it 2015 again?
Yes, yeah. Air Raid is probably the least, probably the one I have the least to say about, really. That F-15 jet mode is looking a bit chibi, but, what are you going to do? Not that egregious. I don't know, he does look quite... In general, this figure looks quite skinny and with a big head. The proportions are a bit off, in my opinion.
I think this might be just one of those looks better in person than in pictures cases.
Maybe. I think that the guns he has are neat. I'm not sure if they're from something or if they're just invented for this toy, but they look all right.
So yeah, this is, as you say, a rough approximation of an F-15 Eagle.
Yes.
I mean, one thing I do like about Air Raid is the dynamic change in color scheme, being mostly black in jet mode to white and red in robot mode. It's very striking to me.
Yeah, yes, I get where you're coming from. It is quite it's quite a big shift. You don't get that many black Autobots, and he's also an F-15, which is the same kind of jet as the Seekers. So it's It's dark, it's edgy, you know. But it's pretty cool. Yeah, I see. I get that.
Though looking at him again, and the wings do look a bit undersized to me.
Yes, yeah. The wings are quite chibi. The cockpit is a little big. Um, the word toyetic gets thrown around a lot, but this does look like a little pullback toy of an F-15 to me.
Again, that might just be a case where he doesn't photograph that great. As for Slingshot, I get similar vibes.
It looks like Slingshot skips Arm Day a lot.
Oh, yes, yes, those forearms don't look that great.
No, yeah. That pretty weak, honestly. Similar opinions, really. This is a Harrier jump jet, I believe. An approximation of. It's all right. Obviously, it doesn't have the vectoring nozzles that go under the wings because where would you put them, really? It's another one that's just kind of okay. I don't really have much of an opinion on it. It's one of the aerial bots.
Well, yeah, I mean, he definitely looks like a Slingshot with the orange head with the sunglasses.
And the slabs on the side of his head, like Leader One.
Pretty blocky looking jet, but apparently that's how he's always looked. Personally, I prefer the visual contrast of Air Raid just a little more.
Mm-hmm.
But his jet does look slightly better proportioned. Like the wings don't look as undersized.
Yeah, I agree. The wings on the real life Harrier jump jet are quite small, so it's not that off-putting. It's not a bad. It's not bad. The back looks a little wide, but other than that, I can't really complain too much. Also, the fact that the intakes are entirely filled in, but like, you know, given that they become the shoulders, I'm pretty sure I can't really complain too much.
Well, we can expect the aerobots to function more or less the same way. Nose cone on the back of the jet splits into the legs. I don't see a lot of transformation variety in these deluxes. And I'm just going to say straight up, don't be surprised if one of the other two is a retool of either Air Raid or Slingshot.
Probably.
We expect one of them to get the breakdown treatment.
Yep.
And then we move on to Silverbolt. Now, just focusing on the standalone Silverbolt figure, he supposedly is roughly Voyager-sized like Motormaster before him. He transforms into an approximation of a Concorde. And like most Silverbolt toys, as in the aerial bot, he is a jet with a bit of a block underneath who transforms into a robot with a chunk of jet on his back.
Yeah, they did a Motormaster. They did a Motormaster with Silverbolt.
I mean, for what it's worth, the standalone Silverbolt figure looks okay. I mean, the Concorde is probably as close as they could get. It doesn't have the nose that like bends down or tilts down slightly, probably for safety reasons.
The technical term is a droop snoot. Yeah, it's funny that the Combiner Wars one could do that, though. It's okay. Once again, it's another example of jets getting like really short and fat. As far as the robot is concerned, it almost has like Energon Optimus Prime proportions to me. It's like there's way too much torso and not enough limbs.
I don't know if it's that bad, but I do see where you're coming from. His thighs look a little scrawny to me.
And the head sculpt is a bit... I'm not sure what's going on with that head sculpt. Mainly the face.
One thing I will say is that with these renders, with the figures colored white, these renders make the white plastic look pretty cheap.
I suppose so. Yeah.
But of course, this is a commander class package, which means this figure does a fair bit more. For starters, he comes with a massive accessory, a big chunky accessory that for vehicle mode combines at the back, resulting in an actual fat jet, uh, a
Yeah,
super Concorde, as it's called.
we managed to put a trailer on a jet. We did
with
it,
its own
folks.
with its own tail fin.
Its own tail fin and apparently its own intakes as well. Oh,
It honestly looks like a spaceship of some kind.
so what it looks like to me personally is I can imagine it being like a some kind of booster that it would use to reach escape velocity. Maybe something that like lets it go. I don't know. Some kind of like ejectable booster. You know, like the multi-stage rockets. Something akin to that, like the shuttle. That's what it looks like to me in my imagination. But
I do
it's
see that now that you mention it.
yeah.
But of course, that's not the only thing it does, because it also forms something of a defense platform.
Yeah, that's pretty weak in my opinion.
And the tail fin looks like it converts into a rifle for Silverbolt to use on this platform.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the combined robot mode gun as well. It's it's certainly something. It's certainly a mode.
Well,
Um,
I mean, let's face it. If they're going to be doing this sort of thing with combiners in the future, I at least give them credit for trying to do something with those extra pieces, regardless of the execution.
eh, I think it could have been. I think it could have been done better, personally. Um, I mean, what can you really do with effectively a combiner skeleton? But I mean, should we get into the combiner skeleton debate?
Well, I mean, I'll lead in by talking about Superion himself because from what I've seen in Kit's Discord server, you aren't particularly thrilled with this method of combination because, like Menasor before him, this basically uses the skeleton method of combining where you can technically form Superion without the other aerial bots, but the limbs, well, the arms, I should say, are barren, and the legs have this hollow gap, this massive gap in the shins. And basically, you have to plug, like with Menasor, you have to plug the aerial bots in the back for those red panels to close up the shins, make them feel more complete.
Yeah, I'm not. I am not generally a fan of the skeleton system. I feel like it kind of defeats the appeal a bit of a combiner, where all the robots form a piece of the super robot. It's more like the robots are splitting up and just attaching onto it. At least with Menasor, you could say, okay, well, they were doing it that way because they were trying to replicate the show model, and the show model for Menasor specifically had basically basically had Motormaster become big, and and then all the rest of the Stunticons would plug onto his limbs. But and so the argument could be made. But when it comes to every other combiner from the G1 era, um, I, I I would really rather that they had actually gone to make a them actually combine. Because at the end of the day, this isn't a combiner. This is a super mode for Silverbolt, if anything.
I do see a point because, on the one hand, um, I mean, those who don't necessarily want to collect all the aerial bots but just want Silverbolt, will be able to form, like you said, a super mode for him without having to buy any extra other figures. But by that same token, the smaller aerial bot toys feel kind of superfluous. They feel more decorative.
Yeah.
I mean, with the Combiner Wars version, at least there is a level of skill in the engineering, because the smaller aerial bot toys pretty much form the entire limbs. Well, kind of in the case of the legs, they form more the lower legs, but still, you get my point.
Yeah. They form the shins. And, you have the combiner ports on them that had the ratchet joints, and those are built into the limb bots, and that was really cool. And quite frankly, the way that Silverbolt transformed into a torso for Combiner Wars was really elegant, in my opinion. It was one of my favorite things about that toy, was the way that it flipped upside down, and then the arms became the thighs, and then the shins fold around and become the size of the torso. That's really cool, in my opinion. And this honestly feels like cheating to me.
And also, this take means that this one lacks the Scramble City play pattern of the original.
That as well. It seems like Hasbro's kind of putting Scramble City on the back burner, which, I mean, really, honestly, I don't see why they couldn't make this Scramble City, where they just design them in such a way where they can plug into the back of the shins and they can split in half to go on the arms. I don't really see what the massive roadblock is for that, personally.
To be fair, if I recall, Menasor has as in Legacy Menasor, has the ability to slide off his lower legs, and you can actually have the Combiner Wars toys form like the lower legs of that Combiner.
Yes, you can. They also, if you look at this toy, you can actually see that I think they're going to be using those same style connection points on Superion. If you look at the picture of the quote-unquote base mode.
Yes, I do see them. Of course, this requires buyers to have toys that were released decades apart.
Yes. Well,
unless of course they're expecting fans to mix and match like the new Combiner limbs, like they replace Superion shins with Menasors or something.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not going to complain about backwards compatibility. Being able to attach Armada Overload to Legacy Optimus Prime is pretty cool, for example. But it's an odd choice. It's an odd choice. I suppose, yeah, you could also swap out the limbs for Menasor and Superion. Maybe it's an OX Studio reference.
The best I can say is that as someone who owns Menasor, he is fairly solidly constructed, and hopefully Superion will be too. But I can understand why a lot of people see him as less impressive from an engineering standpoint.
Oh, for sure. Really, I'm going to hold off on buying this set. I'm going to wait for the inevitable Toy Colors box set that will be released, and if I'm interested by that, then I will buy it then. But for now, I'm going to hold off.
Toy Colors, are they really that different?
They have like the sticker decals and stuff like that. Same with the Menasor box set. They had like sticker. G1 sticker inspired tampagraphs on them.
Yeah, that is a fair point. I'm holding out for the inevitable G2 set because I already own the Combiner Wars aerial bots, and I'm fairly happy with those for the time being.
Another valid point. Another valid point.
I mean, at least with Menasor, the Combiner Wars version didn't turn out so great. Looks a bit awkward.
Yes. Whereas Combiner Wars Superion is pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah, he does hold up fairly well. But anyway, if we're done talking about the aerial bots, with any luck, we shall move on to the true star of the wave.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Titan class Star Optimus Prime, who is supposed to represent the Prime literally named the 13th.
Close enough. Welcome back, Supreme Class.
So yeah, they're basically repurposing Star Convoy from 1991, I believe, as the 13th Prime.
Yep, that looks to be what is happening. And I can't really complain. I've never been particularly a fan of the concept of the 13th Prime, and it's Optimus Prime, guys, but it's totally not. But it's Optimus Prime. But you know, if that's the excuse we need to have a new version of Star Convoy, then hey, I'm all here for it. I think this new Star Convoy looks really cool. It's funny that I've seen it both be criticized for being over detailed and under detailed from different people.
Well, you can't please everyone, but in what way?
Well, I've heard from certain YouTubers that the panels, particularly the panels on the chest, are under detailed because there's no surface detailing on the windows, for instance, or on the big star. But if you actually get close, if you look at some close-up shots, you do notice there is actually quite a bit of surface detailing, even on the big golden cross on his chest. Actually has panel lining and indents on it.
I'm not particularly attached to Star Convoy, but he certainly looks the part. To be fair, the pronounced crests on his head, very. I'm pretty sure that this at least partially inspired Armada Optimus Prime. Looking at that trailer,
maybe. I'm really looking forward to this figure. Because I do actually quite like the Star Convoy design. And I think it's very cool that we have now a version of it that can actually move and doesn't have the posability of a Megazord.
Well, I mean, it technically, I think the original could technically move, but of course it was a motorized toy.
Very true. It could roll along, you're right. But the only articulation that it had was being able to rotate the shoulders and the elbows. So it's pretty cool that we have a version now that can do more dynamic posing.
So its accessories include the MT-13 micro trailer, it's a two-part tread unit, a rifle, an ammo clip, a swivel turret / blaster, a matrix / hilt, shoulder cannons, Zodiac orb, and 14 blast effects.
That's a lot of blast effects.
We can see some of these in some of these other pictures. But of course, how can we forget something that truly makes this set special? The Micromaster Hot Rod.
Yes, we are finally seeing the return of the mini-bot partner for our Titan classes. After being absent from... It was absent in Tidal Wave, much to my chagrin, and it was absent in Metroplex / Megalo Convoy. What was the previous Titan class? It was
Well, you had for the Legacy trilogy, you had Cybertron Metroplex, didn't come with drill bit. Then in
Hmm.
Evolution, it was the Nemesis, who I don't think was ever intended to have a little figurine to begin with. And of
Yeah.
course, we wrapped up with Armada Tidal Wave, who unfortunately didn't come with Ramjet.
Yeah, yeah. I will just say on the Nemesis, um, I don't think that I personally don't think that the fact that the original Nemesis didn't have a companion really makes it any less of a cheap out personally, because the arc that was done also never really had an original partner, and yet they made one in the form of Mainframe, who transforms into Teletran One. I feel like Hasbro could have figured something out to go with the Nemesis, but that's a tangent. The point is, we now have mini bot partners back for our Titan classes. I'm very happy.
And he's looking pretty good too, and posable to boot.
Yes. Um, this is going to be a core class, right? It's not going to be the same sort of scale as the original mini bots, is it? Well, Micromasters rather.
I can't honestly can't say. And as someone who doesn't really collect Titan class figures, because I just don't have the space for them right now, I'm not particularly likely to own this one. As cool as it looks, I don't know if I'll get it. Not out of a distaste towards the figure, like I just said, because he does look like he looks like he does a lot. It looks like the Micromaster Hot Rod pilot's Star Convoy from inside his chest. And in Star Convoys, I know it's Star Optimus Prime, but I'm just calling him Star Convoy out of habit now. In his base mode, there's apparently a gimmick where you can see on the right hand side, Micromaster Hot Rod mans is manning a gunner. Yeah, manning a turret, and it can apparently rotate.
Yeah, I've seen video of that. The little turntable. There's a little a knob that you can spin, and as you spin it, the turntable for the turret spins around at the same time.
Yeah, I think ID said that features like this just makes the figure feel more alive. Like it can do so much. They spared no expense when it comes to this figure, it seems.
Oh yeah. For me, the main thing as well will be if I have enough space to pick this up. I might end up selling my Titan class Metroplex Cybertron version because I wasn't particularly thrilled with it, in order to make space for this figure.
Well, I never got a hold of Metroplex. I mean, even if I had the space for Titans, I've never liked his vehicle mode. So,
That's fair.
yeah, not for me. Not even
Absolutely.
the original.
Wow. I can't blame you. He is just a robot doing yoga after all. I do appreciate that we are getting the van, the little trucks that came with the original one.
Yes, I believe that is the what is referred to as the micro trailer, which Hot Rod looks like he can store inside, and
Yep.
you can add it looks like the cab folds back, which allows you to plug in effects parts on what looks like miniature guns.
Actually, to me, it looks more like the cab is just removable, and then you can plug it into the top, and it has cannons that fold out.
Fair enough. And I'm guessing the same is true for that gun that pegs in on top.
Yeah, that looks like the gun from the platform on the side of Star Convoy's base mode. So I'm presuming it's just attached via 5mm port.
For what it's worth, I will say that the base mode, like even with the original toy, it doesn't look exactly impressive.
Yeah. It's another one of those. I mean, I suppose I can't be too hard. I can't say that the base mode is like entirely an afterthought on this figure, considering how many unique parts were made specifically for it, and the gimmicks that only work in that mode. For instance, actually, yeah, no. Like the ramp feature on the original was pretty cool. How you could slide Micromasters down on a ramp, and then they would go onto the tracks, and the tracks would act as a conveyor belt for them. That was pretty cool. But yeah, aesthetically, it's not the best.
I mean, it does a fair job replicating the original's base mode. It's just what it's trying to replicate doesn't look all that impressive to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And the truck mode, pretty elongated. I don't know how I feel about the design as a whole. The robot to me is that design's true shining point.
One thing that I would have liked to be added was would have been some kind of turntable, so that the cab part of the truck could rotate independently of the trailer, kind of similar to Dark of the Moon Voyager Megatron, if you remember that figure. But I can see why they weren't able to achieve that on this figure. I personally like it. I like the look of it. The look of a big, giant industrial truck. But I can understand it's not to everyone's tastes.
So on top of talking about this figure in and of itself, I guess we can also briefly touch on the precedent that this figure set, because as we know, Hasbro like to complete as many sets as they possibly can. And with the release of this toy, does this mean that we'll get the other two giant base Transformers from Return of Convoy? A certain pair of bots that I know would make a certain Dean of the Arts very happy, them being Sky Gary and Grandus.
Oh yes. A Chug Grandus would be very interesting to see. And of course, it would be an option for Grandus for people who weren't willing to put down a mortgage on their house.
I mean, the only thing I'll say is that assuming that all three are going to be Titan class, would they want to occupy 3 Titan class slots back to back with Return of Convoy figures?
Well, that's a very good question, but I suppose the counterpoint would be, what else would they do for Titan class figures? What do they really have left to do as far as Titan class figures are concerned?
Gigastorm. Still waiting on that retool from Triptychon.
Oh yeah, I suppose. Though that feels more like Pulse exclusive material, all things considered.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know who else they do at Titan class. I mean, if this is sort of a downsized Titan class, or as you jokingly call it, a Supreme class, maybe other characters are now eligible. I don't know who, but I don't know who, but it's a possibility.
Well, yeah, I suppose we could look back at the characters who got released as Supreme classes back in the day. That would be one option. Though I'm trying to think of honestly, all of the characters who I can think of who would be suitable for this new Supreme class revival would be like Giganteon Planet guys from Transformers Cybertron. Hey, we could get a new Menasor, a new Cybertron Menasor. How about that, Rune?
Oh, great. Another giant planet Transformer with nothing vehicle mode. Yay!
Oh, come now. It won't be that bad.
The only one with an actual established vehicle mode is fucking Quick Mix. And I don't know if they're going to do a cement mixer that big.
Well, it was quite big in the show, wasn't it? And we're all for show accuracy in Chug these days, aren't we?
Show accuracy isn't everything.
Well, some people might disagree. Uh, uh, um, but no, I can't really think of anyone else who would really be suitable for that Titan, for that size class.
But as for Star Optimus Prime, like I said, as I don't collect Titans because I don't have the space for them, I doubt I'll be getting this figure in the foreseeable future. But for those who want him, I say I say you won't be disappointed.
Absolutely.
And hey, if they don't do the other two Return of Convoy base formers, I'd be interested to see what future Titan class figures they have lined up. So I believe, unless that is like, unless you have anything else to say.
No, not really. I've said everything I want to say. Though, you know what? Why don't we give our students a little bit of extra credit homework for the winter season to come back with?
What did you have in mind?
Well, I would like to know, what do you think? What do you think, dear students, would be the best choice for future characters to use with this new scaled down Titan class size? What do you think would be the most appropriate? Where can Titan class go from here?
There is one thing that I wish to bring up regarding the remaining primes, and that is based on certain discussions in Kit's Discord server. Firstly, there's Onyx Prime. Now, it's been commented that his design in that picture kind of resembles Cybertron Scourge. Now,
yes, you're right.
Keep in mind, 2025 has a Cybertron-themed capsule line in store, and we have a leader class listing that isn't named, but I think with the comments made about Onyx Prime's design in that picture, I think we have an idea of who it might be.
Ooh.
And you know what? That would actually work out pretty well, because when you look at the listings that we have so far that are named Sideways, Excellion, Skywarp, which we assume is going to be recolored from that Cybertron Starscream they did for Legacy United. Possibly Red Alert as well, considering they did Cannonball. What I like about that is that this means that we essentially have a representative of each planet, well, most planets from that series, except for obviously the giant planet. But with Scourge's inclusion, it would mean we have one for Jungle, one for Earth, one for Planet X, one for Velocitron, one for Cybertron, I think, as well, the planet itself. So that's pretty neat, I gotta say.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Of course, this does mean that Onyx Prime won't have his traditional Centaur robot mode, but if that's what they have to do to get a transforming toy out of him, so be it.
Maybe.
The other Prime I want to touch on is Quintus Prime, because TJ Omega pointed out in one of his most recent videos that the design is very plant-like, which means that this might be the only way in which we finally get a toy of Beast Machine's Botanica.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Now all we need is a Beast Machine's Rat Trap to go with it.
Absolutely. As for the others that have yet to be revealed, I guess we'll see what they come up with. I expect Nexus Prime, in keeping with the Collectors Club exclusive that they did, will be recolored from the Aerial Bots and the upcoming Combaticons.
Maybe. But the image they show here looks like it would be an original mold almost entirely.
Maybe that's one of the future Titan class figures, a combiner multi-pack of sorts.
Maybe. I could see it happening.
And Amalgamus Prime, if you can make him out, is pretty interesting because he is actually based on his Transformers 1 design.
Yeah, yeah. He has the multi-limbed, backwards-legged sort of thing going. I'll be interested to see how they represent his whole multi-changing gimmick. My running theory is that he's going to be a modular toy, where you can mix and match the parts and make like whatever alt mode you really want from him.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the trouble with Amalgamus Prime. How do you keep to his theme of shapeshifting into whatever he wants? Some say the pull apart Isa play pattern. Some say he would work as something of a pre-tool of a potential future RID 2001 Megatron. Or maybe they'll just stick to the Transformers 1 design.
Maybe.
In the meantime, I think we'll call it a wrap. We'll call it quits here. Thank you very much for joining me, Char, in discussing the first wave of Age of the Primes.
No worries, no worries.
I'll try and get this condensed down as soon as I can. In the meantime, take care, everyone. Again, hope everyone had a nice Christmas and will have a happy new year. Take care from me, Runestone.
And from me, your humble dean of fabrication, definitely not Char.
See you hopefully in mid-January for episode 15 of the Chugcratic seminar. Class dismissed.